So let's re-review this album because some things have changed in the world with me and this album. Some updates have happened. So let's start back at the beginning, shall we? So some people are dubbing this album the self-titled album. Some people are calling this Megadeth's the White Album. But come on, guys, there's already a White Album. We don't need another one. But the shocking thing that we all were told going into this album via an AI announcement, which was kind of embarrassing, is that out of nowhere, the man that seemed to never give up his entire life struggling to prove Megadeth in his own case, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Dave Mustaine was announcing that Megadeth would be ending with this album and one more tour. It seemed completely out of nowhere. And they released the song Tipping Point, and it was a pretty solid first song. You know, it had good guitar tone, and they introduced new guitar player Timu into the equation. And to be honest, I think in a lot of ways he's just as good, if not better, than probably Kiko. And I kind of like that a lot of these songs, although obviously not being played in E-tuning, seem to, I guess, sound more like old school Megadeth in a way, even production-wise. However, there's a lot of sterile elements to it, like the drumming, and it just seems like there's not a lot of power behind stuff. And then you have the song that came out, I Don't Care, that a lot of people make fun of. Some people call this the Dr. Seuss song, and it seems like Dave is trying to be too edgy, but I kind of don't mind this song because as goofy as it is, it reminds me of like 90s Megadeth, the stuff like 99 Ways to Die. It really just doesn't bother me that much, and to me it's catchy. And a lot of people point out the fact that the pre-chorus seems to seem... people pointed out that it seems like David Mustaine is taking shots. How do I want to word this? People have pointed out that Dave Mustaine seems like he's taking shots at David Ellefson, saying that he's jacking off in the sheets. And then came that other single, Let There Be Shred was the third single, and that song was way better than the other two, in my opinion. And a lot of people are like, well, the lyrics are goofy, which seems to be a recurring theme throughout this entire album, is that the lyrics seem to be very lazy and almost like Dave Mustaine is losing his mind a little bit. But 80s speed metal always had goofy lyrics like this. So to me, by far one of the best songs of the album. It's pretty damn great. It really does fit in that old school style. And then we got the rest of the album. And what I was not prepared for, and what a lot of us are being taken back by, and I still don't really know if I very much like this, is you'd expect a final Megadeth album to either go out guns blazing or have quite a lot of energy to it. And unfortunately, a lot of the track listing, especially in the middle of the year, is just kind of the same song over and over and over again. It is almost like in the Euthanasia or The World Needs a Hero kind of vein, where they never really hit the gas and they constantly remain in this mid-tempo grind. And a lot of these songs just feel like they aren't that well developed. Dave Mustaine kind of seems like he's out of his wheelhouse trying to be a singer once again. And although I would say personally I think his voice is better because he's not doing that low grumbling thing, his voice seems to be recovering a bit and he's trying to do that nasally, more high-pitched thing he's known for. Obviously, age has done damage, but I think this vocal style works. But the problem is that when you're listening to the same thing over and over and over again stylistically, with kind of this mid-tempo grinding riffs with the catchy choruses, it gets extremely monotonous. And no matter how many times I hear this album, a lot of these songs just kind of feel like half-baked filler songs, which is embarrassing for the final Megadeth album to just feel like they were kind of on autopilot during a lot of these. Now, obviously, a lot of people are going to say, well, this of the mid-tempo songs is my favorite. This one really works. Ultimately, a lot of these songs are just okay, wallpaper, and forgettable, but I feel like they all at least needed a good groove to it. That's what made Euthanasia work. That's what made my favorite Megadeth album, Countdown to Extinction, work. Yeah, this doesn't need to be Rust in Peace to be good. The best Megadeth album to me is Countdown to Extinction, and that's why I feel like of all these songs, the best one by far is Obey the Call, because it has a good-ass groove to it, and it sounds a lot like something like Angry Again or Go to Hell, kind of Psychotron in the vein of that. And to me, of the actual official songs, or how would I say this, of the songs that are on the official release of the album, Obey the Call to me is by far the best, and it actually speeds up at the end, and it feels like they have some pep in their step and some creative they have some creative songwriting actually at play here. What other tracks we got here? So, Hey God, kind of whatever to me. I don't really like that song that much. Some people say it sounds like Symphony for Destruction. I don't hear that at all. Puppet Parade kind of works. What's the song right after it? I don't have notes written down, so it's Another Bad Day. A lot of people hate that song. I actually don't mind that one. It's okay. And then Made to Kill, a lot of people seem to be sucking that song off just because it's the heaviest, just because it's the most technical. And for an album that has Dirk on it, it really just seems like they don't want to show him off or show off at all. And Megadeth was always known for having that intensity, you know? I didn't expect the final Megadeth album to have the intensity of a frickin' Saxon album, you know? Even then, Saxon are more lively. And the new Creator, as I've mentioned many times, has way more energy. And I have a ton of problems with that album. It still kind of has more going on there. But Made to Kill is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like it's really that creative. Just another okay song. Most of the songs in the middle chunk here just kind of are solid, decent songs. But I kind of like the other song that is pretty much a filler, I Am War. This kind of mostly reminds me of like a Rat song or a Dokken song. You know, it doesn't really feel like a thrash song or anything. And that's another thing is most of these songs just kind of feel like mid-tempo heavy metal tracks, which is weird, and we'll get to why, because they actually had another song they could have easily put on this album instead. Then we get to The Last Note, the final Megadeth song, which I'm not a huge fan of, like the melodic intro and outro of this thing. It's all somber and poetic. But honestly, it's a very catchy, very memorable song. It has more up-tempo riffing going on. It just feels like they really should have put their best foot at the end here, you know, if they're going to reconnect everything back to Last Rites Love to Death. Let me get the most tear-ass, ripping, most insane song you can, and then end it that way. So I think this album is just destined to be a disappointment because I don't think they ever planned for this to be the last album until maybe like late into the sessions of writing this thing. They just wanted to do another album, and just kind of whatever happened. That's why some of this I kind of feel might be mailed in or a little contractually obligated as opposed to being really focused and locked in. And Dave Mustaine, man, bless his heart, I thought maybe they were going to hang it up because of some financial problems in the band, and the band does seem to be losing a bit of momentum, but he is having severe problems with his hand and arthritis that is just making it impossible for him to play, allowing for Timu, the new guitar player, to do tons of heavy lifting, just ripping it all over this album with very memorable guitar solos. He does a fantastic job. And I was extremely excited for this album because I saw that he co-wrote damn near everything on here, but it still just doesn't feel like a very well thought out, cohesive effort. That being said, a lot of it has grown on me. It's not a bad album or anything. It just feels like a very disappointing sorry, it feels like a very disappointing album overall, and it could have been a lot better, a lot more energetic. And then it just feels like, you know, you have, of those 10 tracks that are supposed to be the normal songs, it's a solid album. And then they did this embarrassing thing where they wanted to do a cover of Ride the Lightning. And Dave Mustaine has explained that it's not to one-up Metallica, even though he wrote the song or whatever, even though he only wrote parts of it. It's to pay tribute to them and bring everything full circle. But it's like, if you wanted to bring everything full circle, why not do something that's very, very aggressive like Last Rites Love to Death? So the time came, you know, everyone's like, Megadeth, they're going to make Ride the Lightning, they're going to make it faster, they're going to make it more aggressive, they're going to have solos all over it, they're going to prove Metallica are a bunch of pussies. So the day came for them to prove themselves. They're going to somehow outdo a classic metal track from one of the most highly regarded albums of all time from the 1980s with a perfect reverb-heavy production from the classic era of heavy metal, like a definitive album and song. And what did they do? They did a cover note for note. I've even seen some fans have complete copium overdose. Like, yeah, they really outdid Megadeth. They really outdid Metallica here. They went way faster and all those solos are way better. It's like, it's literally the exact same tempo, same performances, way worse vocals, even though James was not doing anything special back in the day as a youngster. And then the time came once again. All right, here we go. Time for the guitar solo. Outdo Kirk. All this talk, outdo Kirk. And they don't. It's just the same exact guitar solo note for note, which is the most shocking thing. So at the end of the day, not only what is the point of doing this cover, what is the point of putting this on an album, and what is the point of making this the last thing fans hear from you? It's just embarrassing. It seems like a marketing ploy just to sell the album. And so far, it's pretty much been hawked up to. Everyone, the first thing they did was jump right to that Ride the Lightning cover. So to me, that's embarrassing. If anything, they should have just done something like Jump in the Fire. But I don't know. That to me, I don't know what to do here because it's labeled as a bonus track. You could technically ignore it. Should we ignore it? Because the album is much better without it. And speaking of much better without it, the most shocking and insane thing that made me want to redo this, because I felt that there's some good spots in this album, and overall it's whatever. It just felt like there was no song that really gripped me. That was like, this is the absolute banger. Like, there's some damn good ones here, like Obey the Call that I liked, but nothing that was like, yes, that's the winner there. Until I, by chance, heard the Target exclusive track known as Bloodlust. And this was everything that this album needed. They needed at least one more fast song, throw out one of the mid-tempo, mediocre songs like Hey God, by far the worst of those, and then put this on there, and maybe even put on the first half of the album. The first half would have been front-loaded with speed metal songs. And that's the other thing. The biggest problem, another big problem with this album is the fact that it is front-loaded with all of the faster songs, and all the mid-tempo songs are one after the other, so the tracking on this album is atrocious. And then the decisions of what songs to actually include here are abysmal, because you left off the best song, Bloodlust, which feels like one of the best songs, and one of the thrasher, more speed metal songs off Cryptic Writings, stuff like Disintegrators, and ultimately the riff kind of sounds like Mastermind, but way faster and way better. It is one of the best songs they've done in ages, and you left it off the album! So, with that included, and if we were to ignore Ride the Lightning, this thing is definitely a pass for me. Barely passes, and maybe we'll get better in time, and it's definitely not as good as The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead, and not even close to Dystopia, but it passes. Maybe about as good, if not less good, than 72 Seasons by Metallica, because that, as much as people throw shade at Metallica, especially Megadeth fans, that was way faster beginning to end. They really had some pep in their step, and Megadeth feels like they're dragging ass through a lot of this. But with that Bloodlust song, it does feel like it just needed that one extra push for me, and I'd give it like a 6 out of 10 or something. Maybe a 6, 7, something like that. But 6 out of 10, I'm landing at right now. It's a pass. I'm okay with it. I'd say maybe I prefer it a little bit over 13, because at least it focuses on being normal heavy metal all the time, not being cringy, Disturbed ripoffs at whatever points in that album. Thanks, Johnny K. So yeah, 6.